28 years in EdTech. I really feel like an old crocodile now. I won't talk too much about my own personal story, really. I will give you some ideas, some thoughts about our innovation, our work based on academic research. And I want to give you a few examples of what worked and what didn't work. I think that may be as interesting. I personally think we can learn a lot from failure and from things that go wrong, almost as much as from real success stories. Just to tell you who we are and where we are. So the name of our company is Televic, but Televic is a group of 4 companies. So the group itself has like more than 1,000 employees by now, spread over 10 sites all around the world, except for the South Africa. And we are in Africa as well now. But I work at Televic Education, which is the smallest of the 4 parts of Televic. So you can see that from those 1,000, only 32 work with us. But we have a presence in those 10 sites. So that's interesting. We are represented in the 10 sites around the world. So we can do business with American collaborators and etc. So that's a really interesting one. And the scale of Televic as a group is an advantage in this context because it gives us the luxury, and I think it's a luxury, to be able to do projects with academics, with academic researchers. That scale allows us to do things that would never be possible if we were just that smaller Televic education company. I'll come back to that. We do 4 things basically in education. Historically, we had a department that made language labs, so fixed language labs in fixed classrooms in universities, etc. You remember those headphones classrooms where you heard something and you had to listen and repeat, etc. So we made those, and that evolved into multimedia classrooms. More and more with projection and group work, etc. So we still do that. Also historically, and because of our link with the other Televic branches, we are specialized. We have a very specific niche in interpreter training platforms. So the interpreter desk you can see here is an interpreter desk from Televic Conference, so our sister company. So what we do is we develop a program, an environment, an online environment for training interpreters to do that. That's a real specific niche, only for universities with an interpreter division, but it's an interesting and important niche for us that we've been doing for a long time. And it's so unique because we can combine hardware and software there. So that's an interesting one. And then the more recent products are Assessment Q, which is our e-assessment and e-learning platform, and Translation Q, which is a translation revision platform. I will talk about those 2 last ones. And I don't want to hide that in the current market, actually, the market trends is that multimedia classrooms, language labs, specific dedicated rooms for interpreter training, that market is going down. Everything is going online, and we don't have fixed classrooms anymore. So luckily, those other 2 are going up. So our business is really changing year over year. That's really important. It's not a stable market. And of course, education will never be a stable market, neither traditional institutional education nor lifelong learning, etc. So that's something I don't want to hide. References, let's not spend time on that, but we're active in many domains, from hospitals over government institutions and schools and universities. So everywhere education and assessment is around. When you talk about entrepreneurship, academic research, spin-offs, etc. You often hear this phrase, all you need is a good idea. And I think it's true. All you need is a good idea. I even say a brilliant idea. I think you need a real good idea to start with. And that's something very important. And if you have good ideas, please use it, spread it, etc. But also, even a brilliant idea is just the start. And that's something that we've learned throughout the years. I don't know if it's unmodest to say, but we've had so many brilliant ideas. And I think so many people have brilliant ideas. But then comes this slide. It's a quote from Bill Clinton. Well, not Bill Clinton himself, one of his campaign mates when he ran for president. It's the economy, stupid. I think after the idea comes the reality check and the market, and etc. So you need the money to develop those ideas, and I think that's the biggest difference between the universities and the academic world and the real companies. That, if I may say, in the universities, people receive money to do something with their ideas, and in the companies we have to earn the money to develop our ideas, and that's a huge difference. It's not a critic really; it's just an important difference to see. And many of the ideas that we have brought to the market really come from the universities. So it was a bit strange for me to listen to the previous speakers, Wim and Ivnako, etc. I mean, I feel like I am a traditional innovative company now, because we are based sometimes on academic research. So today still, we often start from academic findings, and we try to productize them and bring them to the market. It's as if that was criticized in the previous sessions, which was funny after all. It's not a problem really, but it was amazing for me to see that is well, considered to be traditional innovative. It's fun. So a brief history. I worked at the university since '92. I worked at what we called the Education Innovation Center of the university. And our real first project was a CD-ROM. For the young people among us, a CD-ROM is, I think you know what that is, but it's old technology. So we developed the CD-ROM, by the way, published by Akku. The people of Akku may remember that. We developed a CD-ROM that accompanied a book with exercises on French specifically. And 2 years later, based on that technology, we did a university project called AlphaGram. And that project continued to work on the technology of the CD-ROM, but was also translated into a website. And then we came to Idiomatic 1 and 2, which were real online versions of that AlphaGram. So that was already a good example of, you start with a custom project for one specific book. That became a second project where we changed and opened the technology, and that became a real product in itself, because Idiomatic was an authoring tool to create exercises and tests online. And with that technology, I founded Televic, which was a university spin-off, a real university spin-off in 2001, with just myself as employees, as you'd say. So I was the only worker in Televic. We grew a little bit, and then in 2004, the three of us merged into another company, a multimedia company called Indie Group, and we became Indie Education. And then in 2008, we merged into Televic Education. We were 11 then, and with the merge with that part of Televic, we became 20. So that's the short story about the companies, and today we're still evolving and growing step by step. So you've seen that we're around 30 people now, and we have a division, a developers division now in Africa, for instance, where 6 people are working and developing for us. So we're still growing. Okay, now as I said before, an idea is very good, but what we also have found is that your story is so important. So the idea is one thing, and then you need a story to tell to your customers, to sell to the market. So actually, I think that part of the success of our main product assessment queue today is because like 4 or 5 years ago, we started to find and have and tell a story about it. And just to show you, this was our story. It has been mentioned before almost by the previous ones. It's about Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. You all know that if you learn something, the learning curve goes very high in a very short period of time. So the knowledge goes up, but then over time and in 30 days, if you don't use that knowledge, 80% or more is lost after 30 days. So that was our story. What you need to do is get that line back up by doing formative and summative assessments, evaluations, exercises, however you call it. So that was the story that really convinced the most customers like 4 or 5 years ago. That was really such an important element for us to tell to people. And so that's also my point. If you want to start and you have a good idea, think about your story and make it a good story, a correct story, and bring that story too. And then later on, we even moved to this kind of graphs, because with our platform, you can have our system sending 1 email per day, for instance, with 1 exercise, with 1 question. So that keeps that line high. Anyway, we're never cheating, we're never lying. That line always goes down. You forget things. That's just what has. So I promised to give you a few real ideas, a few examples of ideas. So let me come back to one of those ideas and tell you about translation queue. So you have seen, I don't know if the logo of translation queue is somewhere here. No, it isn't. So translation queue is one of the products we developed, I think, 3 years ago. And it was very difficult for us to position translation queue in the market of translation assisting tools. Translation queue is a computer assisted revision tool. In the world known as CAR. In the world of languages, everybody knows CATs, which are computer-assisted translation tools like Trados, MemoQ, MateCat, etc. And we specifically had to tell the story that we are not CATs and we are not machine translations. We are something completely different. We are CARs, and I showed this picture. We are a car, not a cat, but we can live together. Well, this picture is our story, and was the biggest help we had to explain who we are and what we do. Because before we found this picture and used this picture, people did not see what exactly we were doing and how we positioned. So that's also what I meant with that identity, that story that is so important. So what is translation queue about? Let me show you. This is the basic academic idea that we received from a university professor. So a university professor came to us with this problem. He said, look what I need to do. This is a translation of one of my students, and I need to add my comments to those translations. So what he does is he receives that Word file, and with the comments, he adds all his corrections and remarks and feedback in the document. Second translation from the second student, he has to start over again. Same work, even if it's the same error they make, he has to do that all over again. So we made a tool that is this tool, and that tool very simply brings the source text on the left, the translations on the right. So imagine you have like 10 or 15 students here. You have their translation everywhere. What you can do with our tool is you find the error, you select the error. I think I can demonstrate it live if you want. So this is that tool. So I think you are still on my screen now. So for instance, if I have this translation here in the context of the dossier, so I click the error here, the dossier, there is a pop-up here that says add this item. I say this is an error against dossier sous rubrique. This is the error. I select a category of errors. It's an under translation. The real translation should be the above mentioned dossier. And I will click here. This is so funny. All the Zoom tabs are in the way. When I save this, the system automatically tries and finds the same errors in all the other translations. So you can see here, it finds that same error in 1, 2, 3, 4 more translations. And yes, it is the same error. So I click yes to all and apply. Now, this error is in what we call the revision memory, the error memory, and that is stored in the system. If you send out a new translation assignment, that error memory can automatically be applied to those texts or new texts even. So that's what we built. So I think, if I may, this was a brilliant idea. We help to make the revision of translations more effective, more objective, because everybody is judged by the exact same criteria. And we create data. We call it big wrong data, because what we really save are errors. We are not interested in the good translations. We're interested in the errors. And we do analysis with those big wrong data. Now, lessons learned, great tool. It's being used by, I think, 10 or 15 universities and a few very, very big companies, one of them being the United Nations, which is very good. But it's not a world breakthrough. So that idea, as brilliant as it is, still, I don't know if it will survive this product. It's healthy and fine today, and we're happy with the customers that we have. But from this simple idea to bringing it to the big world market, that's quite a story. So let's move on to give you more examples. All you need is a good idea. Based on those big wrong data or analysis, this is our main tool, e-assessment tool. This is Assessment Q. That is an authoring tool, for instance, to create questions. And I'm here at the most basic and overwhelmingly most used question type, multiple choice. But what we did with that was, when you create a multiple choice question, do you know which of the following languages is one of the 3 main languages of Belgium? Now, in our system, when you just type the correct answer and you tick the button that is the correct answer, then this button is activated, and this button will automatically generate 3 more answers that are wrong. So this is what we call auto-generate answers in questions, in multiple choice questions. Now, the answers here come from our huge database of years of taking assessments. So we know what people answer when they get lots of questions, and this is just by feeding our database into it. The system will generate these answers automatically. Now, I think, again, it's an excellent, brilliant idea. And one of the things that is the next step now is that we will auto-generate multiple choice items fully based on a text. And as I said, we are a traditional innovative company. We work with the University of Wolverhampton for that. They have a POC already developed, so a proof of concept that is working already. So if you feed a text of about 3 or 4 pages into that system, it will generate 25 multiple choice questions just based on that text. And to be honest, that is what we learned, and that is fun. 33% of that is really unusable, nonsensical, makes no sense. But 50% is perfectly usable, and the others are usable, but after edit, a human edit. Well, we're happy with that. We thought that 30% was a problem. Well, it is not. So we've learned that with our system as well. What we do now is we generate even more than you ask. And as a human, you can just delete the ones you're not interested in. And that makes this idea even better. And that makes it viable in the market. So that's how we learn from academics and from real life testing to improve an idea and to bring it to the market in a better version. Last example, and that's a very new, recent idea of myself. And this is that we developed a new platform called PEP about patient education. So you've already seen our tool assessment queue that allows you to create multiple choice questions and many other questions. I won't expand on that here today. But our idea was, why not use that tool that is today used in many hospitals to train the nurses and the doctors, etc. Why not use it to train the patient? So the idea is that when you are a patient and you come to the hospital for an intervention or something, the hospital will register you as a patient. And from that moment on, you will receive timed direct links, either as an email or as an SMS, a text message. You can choose that yourself. So, and those timed messages are, for instance, 2 weeks before your intervention, you will receive general information. But that information also includes a few questions. So you will have to answer and we'll check if you understand what it is about. So about your condition, but also about the treatment and about the consequences, etc. And then 3 days before, you'll receive a new one with specific information about your entrance in the hospital, etc. And then 2 days after your intervention, you will receive the same timed link with some help for your recovery, about what you can eat and not eat. Can you swim? Can you do this and that? And we present the information, and it's always followed by a question. Did the patient understand what it is about? So that is what PEP does. So the advantage for the patient is that they really learn. The advantage for the hospital is that they can track and log if they learn. Remember the sheets of paper you often receive when you go to a hospital for an intervention, and just receive a paper and nobody knows if you've ever read it, if you've understood it, etc. So this really helps this. So with that direct link, there is no login, although it is personal. So that link contains an individualization thing. So the hospital knows who did what, when, what they. And with the hospital here in our region, we have already created a link so that what you have learned and what you know and don't know is retrieved through an API and is added as a PDF in your electronic patient file. So, which is really important. It keeps track of what the person knows or not. Now, again, this is another thing we think a good idea, but again here I say this is a good idea to start with, but we're off for a new journey. I don't know if this idea will ever hit the market and be really used. There are so many thresholds, so many obstacles on the way, and often it's the economy, it's the money that will decide whether this will be feasible or not. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope it was useful, and I thought it was better to give you a few concrete examples than to tell another big story.
Thank you very much, Bert. And you did indeed tell us your own personal story. So that was nice, integrated in the story of your company and what's happening. Again, very nice messages also that we could take away from your presentation. And in some respect, it was different from what we heard saying by for instance Wim about Epic and the research. And I've seen again in the chat that discussion is still going on. How much do you rely on the research, and how do you cooperate with universities, and what is the input from research towards the business, and how is research and business different, and so on. I think that this was exactly what we wanted to spark this morning with these different stories and the different types of companies and different backgrounds.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure, sure.
What I in my 28 years, that's already some time, and I have found that universities often are afraid of companies. Not all, of course, but there are academics that are scared to work with companies because it's all about money in companies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's such a pity. So there are many exceptions, luckily, but I'd really I'd be so happy if there were more collaboration between universities and companies, even more than what we do today.
Well, that's another viewpoint on the same discussion, I think, and I fully buy what you're saying. So don't worry about that.
No problem.